So a few weeks ago on the show, we talked about a petulant multi-million-dollar donor to the Democratic Party named Stephen Cloobeck. Now, he threatened to cut off their funds and actually leave the party if they even thought about moving to the left and embracing left-wing populism. This is what he said specifically on MSNBC.
They can't stand the rich. A lot of people want to be rich. So is it the right message that the Democrats are going with?
It's so effing wrong.
Whoa.
I've talked to Schumer. I've talked to Wyden. I've talked to Pelosi.
And said what?
And I said, if you use the term billionaire again, I'm done.
Why?
Because it's aspirational.
Then are you worried that the Democratic Party is going too far to the left?
So much so, it drives me nuts. So much so, it would make me quit the party. And I've made it very clear, I'll cut your money off. And others will do the same. We've had enough.
So when you tell the Democratic leadership this, when you meet with Wyden and Pelosi and Schumer, what do they say to you?
Well, so far, they've given me great signals that they're willing to participate and get there.
Now, since that interview went viral among the progressive community, he learned the hard way that that threat, it doesn't really mean much to progressives. In fact, a lot of us said, if you want to leave the party, bye. Don't let the door hit you on the ass on your way out, because what you're doing is you're keeping the party corrupt. You are keeping the Democratic Party beholden to rich people like you, and to get all that money that you're offering them, they are ignoring what we want. So Stephen Cloobeck learned that nobody really cared about his threat. Real liberals actually want him to leave the party. And in an article for Salon, Connor Lynch actually expressed that same sentiment, saying big donors threaten to bolt from Democrats, and that's a good thing. Mega donor Stephen Cloobeck says he'll quit if Dems don't back away from Sanders-Warren populism. Let him go. Now, in this particular article, Lynch included a quote from an op-ed written by Bernie Sanders for Politico. He writes, around the same time that Cloobeck was professing outrage at the word billionaire as if it were an ethnic slur used against a persecuted minority, America's most prominent critic of the billionaire class was offering very different advice to the Democratic Party. Quote, the party cannot remain an institution largely dominated by the wealthy and inside the Beltway consultants, wrote Senator Bernie Sanders in a column for Politico magazine, in which he argued that the party must open its doors and welcome into its ranks millions of working people and young people who desperately want to be involved in determining the future of our nation. Now, the assessments from both Connor and Bernie here are spot on, and most normal, ordinary Americans who read that would agree. However, one individual read this article and didn't agree. That person, of course, is Stephen Cloobeck. So he tweeted out the article, and he then said this to Bernie Sanders. Senator, are you that stupid to say what you said in this article? We are the party of aspiration. Everyone should be able to make as much as they want, not discourage that, embrace it. If they don't, then we will help them with a living wage. Well, is he not merciful? We don't get tuition-free public colleges and universities. We don't get single-payer healthcare. We don't get nationwide legalized marijuana. But he's at least allowing us a living wage. Well, actually, you don't dictate what policies the Democratic Party is fighting for anymore. We're going to take over that fucking party, and your ass is going to be kicked to the curb, Stephen. Now, first of all, before I get any further, I can't not point out that his comment to Bernie Sanders just received 5 likes. Not even kidding. So, needless to say, not very many people like what Stephen Cloobeck is saying. And to call the most popular politician in the country stupid, I mean, who does this guy think he is? Now, look, he says that we're the party of opportunity and aspiration, and everyone should be able to make as much as we want. And look, in theory, sure, I'm okay with that sentiment. However, that's not what happens in practice. You rich assholes make as much as you want, but what you do is you shift that tax burden away from yourselves and onto us, and then that limits us from making as much as we want. We have to pick up that tax burden. When you greedy pigs don't pay for your taxes, you get everything. You get to buy politicians. You get to call politicians. You have access to them that we don't have. Meanwhile, you're threatening to leave the party if they don't continue to exclusively do your bidding. But what we're saying, Stephen, is not that we want to round up all the millionaires and lock them in jail. All we're saying is that maybe it's our turn to get a tax cut. Maybe it's our turn to have our tax dollars invested back into us and not into the military industrial complex, and not to pay for tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires. That's all we're saying. It's not controversial to us. It's only controversial to you because if your taxes go up, then you might have to decide between an extra private jet and another mansion and not be able to buy them both. Your greed, the greed of your class, has killed the middle class. We don't even have a middle class. The American dream is dead. And as George Carlin stated, you have to be asleep to believe it because it doesn't exist. There is no American dream anymore because you guys raided the piggy bank that is the U.S. government. You bought off politicians, you got them to do all your bidding for you, and now all we're saying is, hey, it's our turn. It's time that government looks out for us. But you've got a problem with that because you're greedy. You can't even fathom the Democratic Party moving further to the left, and you incorrectly claim that they're already moving to the left when they're not. The party has moved further and further to the right. They have. That's just a fact. Since Clinton, he shifted the party to the right. The Clintons basically ruined the party. Now, this was in response to the Reagan Revolution because he came and said, you know what, we don't need a New Deal. We need deregulation. We need tax cuts for the rich. And then that got a lot of people excited. So liberalism, it wasn't as popular back then. So the Democrats responded by moving to the right to compete with the increasing popularity of Reagan Republicans. And that shift to the right didn't stop. They're still moving further and further to the right, to where we see Democrats, progressives like Elizabeth Warren, voting to authorize $700 billion military spending bills. So to say that the Democratic Party is moving to the left is absurd. I wish it were true, but it's not. It's factually incorrect. You're not going to find a single political scientist that will tell you that the party is shifting to the left. Everyone knows that they're shifting to the right. You just have a skewed perception of reality because you live in your elitist bubble. So look, here's the thing. Stephen Cloobeck is a complete joke, and I am really glad that he's showing his true colors because it's good to have this insight into what oligarchs think about us peasants. Really, they look down on us. It's clear when you look at Stephen Cloobeck's tweets. He thinks that we're dumb. He called Namiki Const darling, literally, when he was being condescending to her. They don't think highly of us. They think that we are inferior to them. But look, having money doesn't make you better than us, Stephen. It just doesn't. That's a fact. And even if you may be rich, we all have something that you don't have, Stephen, and that is a fully developed neck. We all have that. You don't have that. So your money can't buy you that, Stephen. So continue to be jealous, but I'll sit here and I will stretch out my neck because I have one. I'll end it there. This went off the rails.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.